Welcome back to Broncos and Parts Garage. My name's Chris. If you're new to the channel, please stick around till the end. You'll see additional links of content I've already created. If you've been here before, thanks for your continued support. So today we're going to go over a topic that a lot of people have requested. And when I say a lot, I mean, 5 or 10 people. That's a lot when I have a new YouTube channel. So we're going to go over replacing the motor that drives your window up and down in the full-size Ford Broncos and F-Series trucks. If you've never taken off a door panel before, you can find a link, again, in the description, and I have a video of a very detailed video on how to remove your door panel without messing anything up. And again, if you don't know how to find the description, you just click on the title. So I'm not sure if everyone knows how to do that. It took me a while to figure it out when I first started using YouTube. First thing we're gonna do here is disconnect my battery so I don't hear the chime and I don't kill my battery with the courtesy lights. So let's get started. The first step, as I said, would be disconnecting your battery. You don't want the chime from your ignition driving you nuts, nor do you want to wear down your battery. The second step would be removing your door panel. And again, if you've never done this before, stop this video, go watch my other video on how to remove door panels. The link's in the description. It's very detailed. It's only an 8-minute video, but it gives you a few tips. When you come back, you'll want to gently pry away your courtesy light. And there's a few plugs. There's a few plugs along the door that this plugs into, like Christmas tree plugs. So gently just pop them away. If you haven't, order one of these tools. They're on Amazon. You can get a 3-piece set for, I think, $9. They're priceless when it comes to this kind of stuff. But pop this away and set it aside. And make sure that your switches are already hanging freely. And they should be after you pulled your door out. Next thing you want to do is pull back your vapor barrier. Be very careful with this. Don't tear it. Don't shred it. Pull it very slowly. I tore mine up here. I'm not sure if I'm going to replace this or not, but you can retape it. You just don't use duct tape. You got to use like a green painter's tape. It'll stick better. Duct tape just dries out. So you'll want to pull this back, and at the same time, tuck your switches through this hole right here where your harnesses go through. That way you can pull this completely out of the way. In other words, when this was in place, these cables went through this hole and went over here, obviously to your door. So I've tucked them through this hole. Now we can pull this all the way back and get it out of sight. And you don't need to remove it past the door handle. I've got some tape here so I can tape mine off so I don't have to worry about it. The next step will be disconnecting your power mirror harness, and that's just a matter of pressing down on the tab in here and pulling the harness apart. It usually comes apart fairly easy. Now there's 2 ways to get this out of the way. You can jam this behind here and pry it off, but this is what they call a sliding clip. There's like a Christmas tree type clip in the door and a flat bracket that actually slides onto this bracket and attaches. So if you get back there with something small, you can pry this back. You can pry that little tab back, and I'll show you. And then you can just slide this off. So that slides in here, that little lip catches over that tab right there, and you can keep that there. And very similar to your back glass, you still have the red and yellow wires. These are the red wires that power up the power window. So we'll pull this clip back and we'll disconnect that. Now you've disconnected the motor that drives your power window. I'm going to remove this harness out of the way right here and get that out of the way so I can get my hands in there a little easier. That should be fairly simple right there. When Ford built these doors, they kind of helped us and they hindered us. Obviously they were built in 2 pieces and they sealed the mechanisms inside the door, but they were nice enough to put a dimple here, and behind these 2 dimples are 2 8mm screws, and that's how you get that motor out. The third one is right here. If you can see that. Let me see if you can see those dimples. There's one there, and there's the 3rd screw that holds the motor in place. So we're going to take a step drill and drill that out, and then we're going to remove these 3 8mm screws and grab this motor out. We're going to start drilling out the top hole, then the bottom hole, and then we'll remove this 8mm screw. And when I say step drills, this is what I'm talking about. You'll want to start with something small and then get a little bit bigger. These can be found at most hardware stores. I got these at Harbor Freight. They're good for a few uses, then you just pitch them. Let's get these mounted and get these drilled. And take your time when you're doing this. You obviously don't want to go plunging too deep and destroy your the bolt behind it. I'm going to start with the hole that size. I'm going to work down here on this one. And drill this one out with a little step drill. Now I'm going to change up to a bigger one. That way it won't go as deep and I can get a bigger hole. And remember, you don't need to buy these motors at Ford. You don't need to buy them at a Bronco specific store. You can buy these motors at any auto parts store. They're about $25 or $30. And the same motor powers your rear glass as well. Let's go a little bit bigger than that. Ultimately, you want to drill a hole slightly bigger than that 8mm screw so you can obviously pull it out of the hole, but you don't need to hog it out too bad. Structurally, you're not going to do any damage. There's a rivet here, there's bracing here. And that should do it. You should be able to see the screw head there. And down here you can see the other screw head. It's really that simple. Now the task is getting that motor out and getting those screws out without dropping those screws in your door to rattle, you know, for till the end of time. So I'm going to remove those right now. Screw number one. Let's get number two out. And I wish I had some sort of magnetic tip on here. What I should have done is put a little bit of butyl or electrical tape on the end just to grab the screw when it came out. All right, we got it completely loose. I'm gonna put my finger back there and make sure I can guide this thing out. And I dropped it. Well, that's not good, but it happens. That will be driving me nuts for the next 20 or 30 years. No, it's not too bad. It is a small 8mm screw. I should have put butyl on the end of the socket, and that would have grabbed it and helped me pull it out. So that's on me. I spoke about it, I didn't do it. So make sure you do it. Let's get this third one out. Well, the motor dropped, which is no problem. I had the window up. I should have propped the window open. I should have propped the regulator open, but it's not that big of an issue. We'll just reach in there and grab the motor and pull it out. It's not that big of a deal to get the motor out if it does drop inside. Now here's the kicker. I did this as an instructional video. My motor isn't bad, so I'm just going to reinstall it. But obviously for the video I did end up losing a screw inside here. I'm going to reach down in there and get it with one of those magnetic sticks. So I'm going to turn the camera off. I'm going to grab that screw out of here. I wouldn't start a project like this unless I had one of these. This is an aluminum shaft, rubber handle with a flexible magnet on the end. So I'll get it, fish it down in the door, and I'll grab that screw. You can actually pull this out as far as you want, and then you can tighten this up and then bend this however you want it. So I'll get it in there and sweep for that screw. So it took me about 5 minutes, but I was able to fish this thing out. It was kind of a pain. So I've got all three of my screws back. I don't need that. Now you'll notice that when the motor fell into the door, when it was disconnected, I could have done two things. I could have kept it connected. That would have held it from falling in, but I knew I could reach in there and grab it. Secondly, you notice that the window started coming down as soon as it was disconnected from the regulator. That's normal. So if you're in a situation where your motor dies with your window up, now you know how to do it. Ideally, you'd want to have your window down, then you don't have to worry about the window dropping. Because I'm reinstalling this OEM window motor, it's covered with a nice layer of grease, but if you're buying a new motor, make sure you cover this with some high quality grease to mesh with your regulator teeth. And what I've done is I've taken some black butyl and I put it inside my 8mm socket, and then I'm going to stick this screw in there, and that's going to hold that nice and tight. That way I don't have to worry about it falling out when I start feeding it into the door. Let's get this motor reinstalled. We want to have the motor portion facing up, the gearbox down. So we'll slide it back in the door, like this. Get this out of the way. And you can see I've got my left hand inside the door, being careful not to slice my wrist open. And I'm holding on to the gearbox portion of the motor and making sure I can line everything up. Sorry if my head's in the way. One of the holes right there. So I've got it in the right position. Now we're going to take our 8mm bolt with the butyl on it. And get it in there and start threading that in, and that'll help hold this motor in place. So we're just going to gently start screwing this one until it's tight. And again, the butyl is holding that screw in place. It's a real lifesaver as far as not losing any more screws. All right, let's get the second screw started. I got some more butyl on there. Let me pull that out a little bit. So we're going to take this screw and stick it in that butyl and get in there nice and tight. And let's go with this screw first. This needs to pivot down a little bit. Make sure you have good lighting too, it helps. I got one of those kits with my Milwaukee. It came with a light and it's been a lifesaver. I'm really happy with it. It's something I never would have bought for myself, but it came in a 3-piece set with other Milwaukee tools. All right, I've got 2 of the screws put in. I'm not going to tighten them down. As a matter of fact, I'm going to loosen them up a little bit to make sure I can get that third one lined up. So we're not going to keep these a little loose. And as you can see, guys, I don't care about anyone else on YouTube. Issues arise. I know a lot of guys snap their fingers and everything's magically done. I'm getting dirty, but I'm dropping screws. This is what happens, you know, day in and day out. I'm a home mechanic. I'm not a pro. I'm guessing if you're watching it, you're just like me. You're just an at-home mechanic or a shade tree mechanic. Again, I'm not going to edit any of this crap out of here. If I have a hard time, you're going to see it because you may have the same hard time and you know how to remedy the situation. Let's get this last screw in. Now, one thing I could have done is, if you don't have this wrench, take one of these step drills, and I may do it right now, and just drill out the corner right here. That way you'll have unimpeded access to this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that right now. That way I don't have to struggle when this motor does go bad. So about right now, about right there. So now to get this screw in, I've got a straight shot, and again, I haven't taken any of the strength out of the door. You might want to touch that up with some primer, you know, just so it doesn't rust. But tighten this up. I don't know the torque specs, but so just tighten it tight. No, I usually go tight and then about a quarter turn. They weren't that tight when I removed them. And a good rule of thumb is, you're using a 1/4 inch drive, don't grab it on the end, grab it up close, maybe with a finger on it, and about as tight as you can get it with that. You're not putting any leverage on it. I use that for oil plugs too. If I have a 3/8 wrench, I'll put my fist as close as I can to the head and turn it. That way you can't apply that much leverage to it. So we got that tightened up. Top one's tightened up. Let's get this bottom one tightened up. And again, I left them loose just so we could line everything up. Okay, the moment of truth. Let's get our harness. We're gonna plug the harness back in. Now I've got power. I'm gonna plug in the, well, I don't need to plug in the power mirror. Right now, I'm gonna go reattach the battery, and then we're gonna hit this power switch, and see if it worked. The truck's energized. Oh, turn the air off. Truck's energized. Here's our window switch. She goes up and she goes down. We've got the motor installed. Again, mine wasn't bad. I just took out my good motor to show you how easy it was to remove it and reinstall it. The trickiest part really is just balancing it in place till you get one of these screws. I would recommend making this a little bit bigger, and drilling this one out from the get-go. You've got some bare metal here. You don't want that to rust, so off camera, I'm gonna touch that up with a little bit of primer. I'll probably just spray it. I'll put something, slide a piece of paper behind the door and then spray it. I don't care if I get black primer on the door, but I definitely want to clean and not leave any bare metal behind this door panel to rust. Secondly, I'm gonna put our vapor barrier back and then reconnect all these harnesses and then put the door panel back on. Again, in the video description, there'll be a link to removing and reinstalling a door panel. So I hope this helped out. Give it a thumbs up. Let me hear your comments in the comment section below if you have any concerns, or if you think I did something wrong, or if you thought I did something right. Let me know, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. For those of you that stuck around this long, I've got one more tip to show you. A lot of times these doors rattle. And if you look, it's usually this rivet right here, or this rivet coming loose up here. If you notice, this rivet's loose. So when you slam your door, you get that rattling door whenever you drive down a dirt road. It's this rivet has come loose. You have two choices. You can get some kill mat or dynamat, pry this back and wedge it down there and hope that the butyl will get rid of that oscillation or vibration. I don't want to tear down my vapor barrier anymore, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run some self-tappers in right underneath it and re-secure this armrest brace back to the body of the door. But again, if you've ever heard this noise driving on the road, there's nothing that drives you crazier than a rattle that you can't find, but now you know of one rattle in your door. The second rattle on the door comes from a metal brace in here that usually comes apart. There's a bracket that goes from the inner to the outer door underneath your vent window. We'll get to that another time. So if you've had a rattle that you can't figure out and it's driving you nuts like this, either drill that rivet out and replace it, or put some self-tappers on either side of it, or wedge some kill mat between the bracket and the door, and that should absorb it. Another issue is right here. Obviously, these are two different pieces of metal. Sometimes this bracket where your armrest mounts to will come loose, and it'll actually rattle against the back piece of metal. And you can see it drive you nuts. So when you get your door apart, take a look at that. Another good tip would be, now that you've got your door panel off and the vapor barrier pulled back, take your speaker out, put some foam behind there. You don't have to add kill mat or dynamat. Ford already did that for us. That's what this is. And kill mat and dynamat won't stick to that. You can roll it on, but it will peel off and end up in the bottom of your door. But put some foam back there. What the foam does is when the speaker's making sound, the sound waves go out of the back of the speaker as well. They bounce off the door, they bounce back to the speaker, and it cancels out some of the sound. If you have foam back there, it stops the sound from bouncing back, or limits the amount of sound waves that bounce off the door panel back into the speaker. So your speakers will actually seem a little bit louder. If you don't believe me, try it. The foam's super cheap. I use Noico foam. I buy it on Amazon. So just a couple more tips. After I ran a few self-tappers in, nothing. No more noise.